my friends. Welcome to another episode. I am in a contemplative mood, a reflective mood, a great mood, but I just finished up an awesome, really just heartwarming conversation with Kelly Denison of Continental Machine Company down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Kelly is the, third owner, but second generation. His dad used to work in the business. His dad bought it, I believe he said in the 80s. No, 2000, excuse me. And then Kelly himself took over from his dad in 2020. And I'd love to meet his dad one day. Sounds like an awesome guy. But what struck me about Kelly was he is just so proud of being a machine shop owner. He's proud of his team. He's proud of the careers they have. He's proud of the skills that they have developed, that he has enabled, help them enable to develop their skill set, which enables things in their life, like flying across the world to go meet, their wife that they met online and bring that skill set with them they can use in a new place, or, buy a house or a car or whatever it is. And it's not just the pride in the people and what that enables, but also what they're actually doing. The actual parts they're making, the applications they go in, the lives they protect or save, that's also very meaningful to him. And it just really, it's humbling to me to be able to speak with someone that speaks with such passion and conviction. It makes me reflect on our role, my role in the machining world and how that affects every other thing in the entire world, as you probably have heard me say a million times if you listen to the show very often. So anyhow, I just loved the conversation. I want to shake that guy's hand someday when I get to meet him, and I know you're going to enjoy it. I won't get into all the other things. Let's just go listen to Kelly talk about how it is to have grown up in a machine shop and now be running Continental Machining Company. Kelly, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure as well. So, we connected on LinkedIn. I really enjoyed some of the things I saw about what you're doing there at Continental Machining. Arthur had some really kind words to say about you, and I respect his opinion a lot. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the origins of Continental?
Yeah, no problem. Arthur, I was had a great time with him when they came out, and he was had good things to say, and I really do appreciate his kind words. It was cool to hear from an outsider. But yeah, Continental. So we were started in 1965. We're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There are two main national labs in Albuquerque and in the New Mexico area. Yeah. And that's kind of where we started our business, doing business with them, supporting them. And they're still a giant customer of ours today. The business was started by a man named Butch Yapel. He was kind of a legend in the area. A few people have said that he trained half the town as far as machine shops and business owners and things like that. He was one of the first and one of the greats for sure. So that was cool. My dad, he worked for Butch from the 70s until he bought the company from Butch. Dad bought the company in 2000.
Okay.
And I started working here in 98 when I was I wanted to go to driver's ed. Dad said, "Well, I got a hole to dig for a crane. Come over on spring break and dig a hole." And so that paid for my driver's ed, and that was kind of game over after that. Just working summers out here and everything like that. And in 2020 is when I bought the business from my dad and just kind of rose through the ranks and did quite literally every single job in the building, from janitorial to being the accountant for a number of years to programming all the machines and running them, everything. So a lot of people said it was by design and I was groomed, but 100% of it was by accident, and I fell into every position I came to. So
let me guess, when you first started, after digging that hole, did you sweep the floors and run the saw first? Was like some of your early things? It seems like those two things, like everyone starts running the saw and sweeping floors.
Yeah, it was sweeping floors for sure.
Yeah.
I jumped on machines pretty quickly. I had started running machines at home. I think most shop owners are going to have a Bridgeport and a lathe in their garage. And that was the case with my dad. He had a Bridgeport and a lathe in the garage. And when I was younger, I wanted to start racing cars. My dad was a car racer and I wanted to get into that. And he said, all right, you got to pay your dues though. And you got to start making parts. So I was early teens, 12, 13 years old, learning how to make control arms and things like that at home.
Super cool.
So when I actually came to work for the business and started doing work here, I jumped onto machines fairly quickly because I did have, I was a kid, but I had experience and was operating things fairly quickly. So that was cool. That was cool.
Yeah. And give us a snapshot of what Continental Machine looks like today.
So today we have just under 40 employees. We have 31 CNC machines, various mills, lathes, 5-axis, live tool, dual spindle, you name it. We're a basic job shop, like most across the country. And our main customer base is going to be the aerospace and defense sectors, heavily in the defense area. Some of that comes from the labs that we have here. They're heavy into the defense space and nuclear power and things like that, directed energy, and the list goes on. But we got into more of the defense stuff on a national scale with some of the larger primes and things like that, doing work for them.
Cool. Was that during your tenure in the last 4 years or prior to that with your dad?
No. We got involved with TI, Texas Instruments, back in the 80s, doing work with them.
Okay.
And then through the years, RTX eventually owns all of them, and Collins and other customers like that. And so just being on an approved vendor list through the years, just kind of climbed up the ladder to bigger and bigger companies as they bought out TI and then Raytheon and then so on and so forth. So,
yeah. We know how that happens. Back in our shop days, we probably had five of our reasonably large customers all get ultimately bought up by the same company.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, that's a lot of consolidation.
Yeah.
And now you have this big behemoth customer that's, 60% of your business or something, but still in multiple business units in different locations with slightly different types of products. So
exactly.
It doesn't make you quite as nervous as one site, one buyer buying all that stuff from you, but still it's a concern.
Yep, it is.
So let's kind of just talk about maybe the growth story of that business. So what it looked like when your dad bought it, what kind of things did he put in place? And then, how did you work with him over those years to, get certifications or, add equipment? I see, on that post with Arthur, you have some very nice Matsura, multi-pallet equipment. So obviously into some automation. Yeah, just kind of give us a feel for that journey.
Yeah. So when it was started, it was all manual machines, just like most shops. And Butch did a good job of trying to stay up with technology and trying to be leading edge through the 70s and 80s, bringing in very, very antiquated by our standards CNC machines. And we've kind of always done that and done a good job of staying on top of those things. Dad, when he bought the business, that's when we really started getting heavy into the defense stuff. And as defense started to need more requirements from their suppliers, that's when we had to get into our certifications. We're ISO and had to go through that process of bringing that quality management system on board. And Dad hired an individual to kind of build it out for us. And he was on staff for a number of years and built the baseline of it and did a great job of doing that. And then that gentleman ended up just moving on to different things, and we moved another gentleman into the position, and he kind of took and carried it. And when we did that, that was probably early 2010s, somewhere in that time space is when that transition happened. So we were up and rolling on our ISO system and things like that. But from my perspective on the shop floor, and I think a lot of businesses can be the same way. They see the ISO system as a quality system and only a quality system. And so the ownership and management, they're over here and they handle the business end, while the quality manager, he handles the ISO stuff, and they operate in kind of two different lanes.
Sure.
So then when we moved Jason was the individual's name. When we moved him over into taking over quality, Dad had me and him go through ISO training here locally with a manufacturing extension partnership, the MEP.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that was good for me foundationally to kind of understand that it's not just a quality system, it's really a business system.
Absolutely.
We had this system in place, and as I've grown, I've started to learn more about how it really should flow through the entire business, which it always had, but really looking like at metrics and KPIs and things like that really made a big change. And that's something that I've realized in the last few years of what that system really can be utilized for and have so much more value added versus everyone else's vision of it being a burden having a QMS. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Dad built that out, and that was a good change for us, and really brought in that next level of customer above and beyond some of our local people at the labs and things that took in those big primes. And then equipment wise, we've been pretty heavy on horizontals for a long time. Lots of production work through the years, and that always ebbs and flows. I always kind of call it a pendulum shift. It just swings back and forth. And we've been built on prototype, but production comes, and we enjoy it when it comes, like most people do.
Sure.
So the horizontals were a pretty versatile tool. We have 2 shifts. Historically, we've always had 2 shifts. So it was good to be able to share like a day shift, night shift pallet, or have production stuff and it's running on pallet changers and things like that. But here lately, the big technology shift from everybody with the 5-axis machines, it makes life so much easier. Going from a horizontal where it's kind of you're using it as a 3+1 kind of machine. Some of it you're going to get into the full fourth, but most of it's 3+1. Now you get into the 5-axis where you're just clamping on it once, and it changes strategies, it changes run times, it changes reliability things and probing and all the things like that. So over the last 7 years, I've been pulling in new machines and 5-axis machines. And the first one, it took a little while for us to learn how to use it and quote the work and things like that. And once we got that kind of dialed in and figured out, then we were like, oh, we need another one. And got a second one. We've historically had DMG Moris and have a DMU 50, DMU 75. And then with those 2 machines, we just stayed loaded up with work. And I was really looking for a solution to be able to do pallet changing and pallet pool stuff where, we're feeding inspection and still setting up the machine and still keeping the machine running. And that's, long story short, how I got to the Matsuura deal, and really, really been happy with that piece of equipment. It's all in one. We're not bolting up different systems onto machine tools and things like that, which they work, they have for a long time, but having it be all integrated and that one manufacturer covers everything, it makes a big difference in ease of use and training of our guys. So, so that's kind of the technology spot that we've gone into. We don't do a lot of live tooled lathe stuff. We have them.
Okay.
We're not the best at them. We usually reserve those for high production jobs and things like that. But the 5-axis milling and stuff is really where we've found a lot of growth and being able to be a lot more efficient, especially for our customer base. It's a lot of prototype for the labs and things like that, and high tech work. And so it's been a wild ride, that's for sure.
Yeah. I always say it's the hardest business in the world. There's a million details you got to get right, or else that part's not going to be good and the paperwork's not going to be good.
Right.
Yeah. And the trials and tribulations of growth and cash flow and buying machines and people, and it's just hard, but it's fun and it's rewarding and it's so essential.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of everything that gets built. So I wanted to ask, going back to the QMS slash BMS, business management system. In your mind, was thinking about it more from a BMS really sort of maybe like your analogy, you're mentioning, having your Metsura be all in one system, all one company. Is that kind of this similar analogy? Like the BMS is like the business side and the operations and quality side are just really tied together as like a way to drive efficiency and reduce risk. And can you just speak a little bit more? Because I know there's still some people out there that are in the mindset that it's a burden, it's an obligation you got to do to open doors, but who needs it, right?
Yeah.
Help dispel that myth.
Yeah, a lot of it is efficiency and catching problems before they happen. And that's, our contract review and a number of things like that we're catching them before we make the parts, and making sure that we have the right materials, and we're procuring, even quoting the right material when we turn in the quote, let alone when we actually make the purchase order to buy the material. The big spot for me that really clicked was it actually has happened in about the last year to 2 years. I was understanding the flow of the business, but the thing that was always kind of a sticking point for me on the business side and the quality side was, on the quality side, we have metrics that we were tracking, and things like on-time delivery, customer satisfaction, scrap rates, and things like that, which are important.
Mm-hmm.
But our quality manager, historically, both of them who had been in the role to build the system, they were coming at it from a quality perspective. And while that was good, they didn't have the business perspective to also have other KPIs that really matter and help the health of the business. And you mentioned one of your other podcasts I listened to yesterday. I think it just came out recently. With the lady was a part of Vistage groups and things like that. Just for the last 2 years
Kyra
have been
from
in
BTM Industries.
Yep. I got involved in a mastermind group outside of manufacturing. It's all different business owners, different sectors, all across the country, and it taught me a lot about KPIs and that you need to have them. And so then I was like, well, what are my KPIs? And they were like, well, you got to figure it out for yourself. Well, okay. Mm-hmm. But as I've gone, I've figured those things out, and now I've pushed those into some of our quality metrics that we're looking at, as far as backlog and monthly shipments and profitability and things like that drive quality, and all the systems have to work together. And that's one thing in the last year or so that I've really learned and kind of not finished. I'm constantly learning, but really is closing the gap and making me understand that it is a business management system. Yes, it's important to be watching the metrics on quality and escapes and things like that. Hopefully we're not having any escapes.
Of course.
But also utilizing the business metrics that are driving and sometimes making business decisions that people outside of what my job is as the owner, and we're a business where I'm the CEO, CFO, COO, all the hats.
Of course. Yeah.
Not everybody knows why I make a decision or why I'm doing certain things and deciding, oh, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do it that way, or let's adjust that. And it actually has data behind it of, there's a reason why we're not moving forward with this new piece of equipment, or there is a reason why we should chase that piece of equipment because we've got a lot of this type of work, and things like that I think a lot of people forget. They keep it compartmentalized, and it really makes a big difference to keep it all together.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really cool that you went to that mastermind group and brought those learnings back and then applied them in that way.
Game changing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you just elaborate? I was just gonna say elaborate more on, because I think a lot of shop owners feel like they're in a bubble and they gotta know it all and figure it all out themselves and like not ask for help or not appear like they don't have all the answers. And I know my business wouldn't have survived without outside counsel and guidance from some coaches that quite honestly helped us navigate through the 9/11 period and that just crazy downturn after that. So yeah, maybe just share a little bit more about what that's meant for you to have a peer network and learning from others.
Yeah. Where it kind of started is my dad always had a saying that he's just a machinist. I'm just a machinist trying to run a business. And it always made me laugh, and when it came my turn and when I rose through the ranks, I kind of was like, you know what, I really want to approach that different and change my mindset and not have that same mindset and really lean into, I'm a business owner. Yes, I'm a machinist as well, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to be good at being a business owner and learn from good people. And so I have a local gentleman that owns an auto body shop that unspoken, we have a mentor relationship with. He's
Mm-hmm.
older gentleman. He's probably got 40 years on me from how long he's owned his business and everything, and a lot to learn from. He's scaled it beyond what anyone could imagine a auto body shop could be,
Cool.
And so that really helped. That relationship really helped learning like, oh, he's facing a lot of challenges that I'm facing. And so it made me want to dive into that mentorship kind of stuff a little bit more and surround myself with people, and got involved with this group called Apex. And there are about 10 of us in this group. None of us, again, have any kind of overlapping industries. So, some small ways, there's a marketing guru. There's a construction litigation, personal injury attorneys, a CEO, headhunter, all kinds of different scopes of work. And just learning from them has been great. You mentioned before, we have a very dynamic and wild industry to own a business in. There's so much that goes into it all. And again, I think, like you mentioned too, a lot of owners think that they're alone, and yeah, we are extra special and nobody knows our business. It's a wild one. And my dad, he would say the same. He still says the same thing. However, one gentleman who's been great in the group, Pete Fowler, he says, we all have different businesses, but we're all facing the same 200 problems, just at different times in our business career. It's all very similar. We've all been in a different spot, and having that group to go to and say, this is the issue that I'm having, and we process the issue. And very smart individuals. I feel outclassed, that's for sure. But I have a lot to learn, and it's been extremely valuable to get their insight and to realize that I'm not alone, and that even though my business is different from theirs, we are facing a lot of the same HR issues and law issues and equipment issues, and you name it. We are facing the same things, even though there are some specialized intricacies of each of our businesses. It's still a great sounding board for sure.
Yeah. I mean, every business needs people. It needs resources. It needs, so many similar processes, I'm sure, even with the headhunter, you need to do sales and marketing. You need to have leads coming in. You need to convert them. You need to keep them happy. You need to make sure you're delivering what you say you're going to deliver. And I love that you said you feel outclassed, because I think that's actually a fantastic situation to put yourself in. There's this saying that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if you hang out with really high performing, smart people, that's just going to elevate yourself. And I just read an interesting study that I think it was with students. And it was like, if a student literally sits near a high performing student in a classroom, like their achievement will increase by like 20%. But if they sit near a low performing student, their performance will decrease by like 30%. So there's like even more of a negative drag down, hanging out with people or being near people that don't care or don't try, versus the aspiration or inspiration of working with people that are just smart and going after it, and you're learning. And it just, I think, builds this sort of positive, virtuous cycle, because
Right.
ultimately you'll be that person with 40 years experience, and you'll have other people that coming up and you're shepherding and being a mentor to them, and investing in all of that along the years is just going to make you a better, well-rounded business person, not just a machinist that happens to run a machine shop. Right.
Yep.
Have you ever read that book, The E-Myth?
I have not.
Heard?
No.
Okay. It's
No, I have not.
it's a pretty easy read. Just takes a couple hours. I think you'd enjoy the heck out of it.
Okay.
It is very much built around or written around this concept. So the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. And the entrepreneurial myth is that an entrepreneur that is a good technician in a craft will be good at running a business that does that craft, right?
Mm.
So the myth that if you're a great machinist, you'll be great at running a machine shop, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth. And the reality is that most small businesses are started by people that are experts in a craft, and maybe they got upset with their boss or just wanted more opportunity, and they're like, I can do this. I know how to machine.
Right.
Or I know how to fix cars, or I know how to build houses. But, quickly come to realize that there are so many skills that you just don't know. And it's not there's no fault that you don't know it. You just never learned it in your profession or career so far. So you got to go and learn them, and you're a grown ass person. You can't just blame the world for the fact that you're not a good business person. You got to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've done that. So
Yeah.
good for you, man.
It's
awesome.
It's kind of interesting you bring that up, because kind of telling our story a little bit more. It was never part of the design for me to take over Continental. My dad didn't make that decision of like, okay, you're going to take it over, I think, until 2017, I think.
Okay. Was there a different plan all along?
He had another buyer a lot longer before that.
Okay.
And the 08-09 crisis kind of caused that whole deal to kind of fall apart. And so it just kind of stayed steady, and it was just operation mode from that point. And he didn't really have much of a succession plan, really. And in 2015, I started a shop on my own. I had been doing side work, just like my dad. I was like, I'm going to have a Bridgeport and a lathe in the garage. So
sure.
I started doing side work and things like that. And I finally was like, you know what? I want to buy a CNC. I like CNCs, and why not buy it? So I bought a TL1 and just started doing work on the side, and legitimately started a business. And, I say this kind of joking, kind of not. Almost it's my backup plan for whatever my future is if I don't stay at Continental for the rest of my life, and relatively that wasn't very long ago. It was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I went through all the hoops of starting a business from scratch, and built it up and did all right with it. And eventually I think my dad paid attention to that, and the work that we put into it, and the work I was actually getting out of it. He kind of was like, oh, maybe Kelly can do this, and let's start talking. Yeah, let's start talking about the big shop. And that I think that starting that small business and going through that learning curve, that taught me more about running the business of Continental than I ever learned working at Continental. As far as running the business,
sure,
it taught me a lot, and that was very interesting. It's interesting you say that. So maybe I do have that entrepreneurial gene that works out all right. So
yeah. Did you do the peer group stuff after 2020, or were you doing that during I see it on your LinkedIn, your Denison Machine Works business? So is that part of that?
Yeah, Denison Machine Works was 20. Yeah, I still have it. I don't do much with it, but 25. Sure. 2015 until 2020. And then after 2020, that's when we went, did the purchase agreement and everything, and I took over Continental full time. I was president in 2019 and the controller in 2018. But that's a whole nother story. But so the peer group that I joined in 2023.
Okay.
So that
last couple of years.
And it's been huge. It's been huge.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned so much doing your own thing that like gave you a foundation to then build all this learning from the peer group on top of? You've kind of been in the trenches as an owner operator, of that business.
Yeah, that definitely gave me the foundation of the business side. The thing that the small business helped me a lot with was signing up with big customers and doing certs and reps and various different things, and being able to fill out forms online and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that is kind of daunting to people. Like, oh, I hope I don't screw this up. And I did it, and I did the law side of it, and set up my LLC, and lots of things that not a lot of people go through. And I did that all alone. I wish I had had a peer group to help me through
Sure.
that, because it'd have been much easier, and
Of
lessons learned.
course.
And now there's people that I help out now, and oh, talk to this lawyer. It's $250 to set up an LLC with them. They'll get it done in a day.
Right.
You find resources, but I definitely went through it the hard way, and
Right.
and learned the hard way, which was cool. It's good.
Yeah. Sometimes there's no better way than slogging through that,
Mm-hmm.
learning so much, coming out with some cuts and bruises, but you're more calloused and more ready and more tough. And
Right.
tell me about how 40 people is a lot to employ. How do you find them? How do you retain them? How do you think about culture and values and all the things that, I think are important these days to have a thriving business, which if you don't have a thriving culture, you're not going to have a thriving business. So yeah, talk about that side a little bit.
Right. So finding employees, that's the hard thing for everyone, right?
Yeah.
I've worked with locally, our local trade college has a machining program. I graduated from it. A lot of the people that came before me graduated from it, and we still work pretty closely with them. We have a good formula going. Sometimes COVID really slowed things down as far as the trade school was, because they were closed
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, and really they've been in a rebuilding phase here recently. But typically we're hiring students that are second, third term students out of that program, that are still in the program, but they work for us on nights.
Yeah.
And they're doing very simple programming, doing some operating and things like that, getting their feet wet. And so they're able to go to class during the day and have a full-time job at night. We're very flexible with that, because we know also how hard it is to
Sure.
have a job and go to school. But that's a good recruiting tactic that's worked very well for us through the years. And then culturally, we're pretty relaxed, and we're proud of everybody. We I, I really take pride in the skills that our people have, and I'm impressed with the work that we do. It's pretty awesome to see the stuff we do, and I think everybody gets a lot of creative freedom here. As I've only been in these four walls my whole life, right? I've been in a few other shops, but as my career has gone and I've networked with other shop owners and different cultures and things like that, I've found that there is somewhat of a setup of, you have programmers and then you have machinists, and the machinists are taking the programs, setting up the machines, and running the programs that somebody else gave them. But we've always been a shop that the machinist is programming his own program. He's setting up his own tools, his stock, and cradle to grave, they're taking it all the way through. Sometimes, mill, lathe, wire EDM, one guy is doing it, all of it. We
Wow.
do have departments where certain people are on lathes and certain people are on mills, but there are some guys that do some crossover between both of them and really cradle to grave the job. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's not the most efficient way, and that's difficult to navigate through that side of it. It helps with culture, I think, a lot, giving them a lot of opportunity to learn all types of things. So it's good for us to keep employees that way, because they get to become a full well-rounded machinist, and
Mm-hmm.
not just a mill guy or not just a lathe guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So typical, I think our average gestation is about 8 years, something like that. Um,
Okay.
is It's decent. it's not the best. That I feel like it could be better. But that's also cultural, where a lot of people these days have a new job every couple of years and things like that. So I think we're facing that, and so I think 8 years is something to be proud of in the culture we have. But yeah, so 40 people is a lot, and we do try to promote from within as far as when we do get production work, we hire on operator types that will push the button, for lack of a better term. And as they show proficiency and skills of checking parts and making sure they're making good parts and deburring and all the different things like that, then we kind of take them up the ladder and teach them programming and put them on mills and lathes and see where they really are inclined. And that's really neat. And I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. My dad, years ago when I was just a shop foreman, I was struggling with, man, I don't really make parts much anymore. And I wish I made more parts, and I don't like having my hands off as much as I am having to be hands off now. And he said, well, your perspective needs to shift. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, I had to learn that instead of making parts, now I'm making machinists, and I'm making careers for people that sometimes wouldn't even have a career. I haven't, right now we have a number of guys that didn't know what a machine shop when they walked in here. And one of them is my quality manager now. And another one, he's our best lathe guy. And they never went to trade school, but they just jumped in here as programmer or as operators, and up the ladder they went. And I'm really, really proud of that. And that's important. And I think that hopefully that is part of the culture that everyone feels, and what keeps people around is that they know that we want them to be better, and that we care about the craft that they're doing, and that it's a career and not just, they're valuable to us just like we're valuable to them. It matters both ways for sure. So,
man, I love that sentiment so much. That's awesome. That's awesome. That must be really meaningful and rewarding to you to be able to provide that opportunity to people.
Yeah, it is. And that it was to my dad, and I don't think it was taught to me. I think he mentioned it and would do it, but actually once I experienced it, it really meant a lot more. And now that I'm experiencing it, it's like, oh yeah, that's one of my whys. That's for sure. That's one of my whys.
I like it. I like the fact that you even use that term, your why. I'm not sure everybody thinks that way, but have you put intentional thought into your whys, and have you done that also for the company?
I have intentional thoughts for my personal whys. And some of the stuff, it drives business decisions and culture and things like that. One of those being that we're a shop that wants to teach people how to work and how to have a career and be successful. And so that's definitely one of my whys. I have a few of them. Another one, and another one of your past guests, Court.
Oh my gosh.
That guy, I aspire to be like that guy.
Yeah.
Philanthropy in the last few years has been a big thing for me. And, I'm a believer just like Court. And, last year I was able to fund a church and buy them a building,
wow,
down in Costa Rica. And
that's amazing,
man, that was a big why.
Yeah.
And that's again, going back to the gentleman that's here in town, that's kind of a mentor. That was one of the things he taught me. We sit on a board of directors right now for a nonprofit together, and he's very big into giving. And one of his first things to me was never say no, always say yes, because you're blessed. And and there's protocols beyond for that. We can't have people asking for $1 million and say yes. But
sure, of course.
That really gave me a lot of meaning, a lot of value in what I do and what this place is about. it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than my success. It's bigger than necessarily even the success of my employees, even though that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
We're very blessed, and we can bless people globally through our work and through what we stand for. So yeah, that's another big why for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful. I was going to ask, how do you feel about your business being, a cog in the economy, and creating good, good middle income jobs for 40 families. But you've already kind of answered that, in the greater sense as well. But maybe can you just speak a little bit more about that? There's, you read that, manufacturing jobs are some of the jobs that have the greatest multiplicative effect that ripple out and support many other different types of jobs. That's always been meaningful to me, that, helping support the machining industry is like, it's like throwing the most fuel on the fire of the economy as you could possibly do. So yeah, do you have your own thoughts on that and just what it means to you to be an owner of a manufacturing business?
It goes back to just giving guys careers. Just there was one kid that we had for a number of years, great kid, and he moved halfway around the world because he was a machinist and was able to go down to New Zealand and pick up his wife that he met on Instagram. And he was able to take the career that he started here around the world to go do something somewhere else and live the dream, and facilitate what he wants and what was best for him. And that's really where I feel like, for me personally, what I see is that's the cog for us is creating jobs and creating careers and lifestyles that people can live forever. It's not factory work. People ask me if we have a factory, and when I hear factory, I think of places in China where people are just putting a screw in a hole all day long, and that's tough. It can be somewhat demeaning work.
Sure.
We're doing stuff that people can be very, very proud of and be very, 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 very good at, and we give them that opportunity to do that. I again, another piece of the cog. We're in defense, and a lot of people think defense as far as offensive threats and things like that. And how do you sleep at night making parts like for that stuff? And we're saving lives. We've got one system. I can't really name what it is, but we're heavily involved in one system that's in the Middle East, and it's a defense system, literally a defense system for bombs that are coming over the wall and hitting innocent people. And we got involved in that. And again, me being a religious man, it meant a lot to be a part of it. And it means a lot when we're making stuff that literally is saving innocent lives. And that's big for me as well.
Yeah. Man, that I was just about to say that maybe the business of making parts is just a vehicle to help build people and careers, but at the same time, you're very proud of the actual parts you're making. So the things you make matter. So it's meaningful to work on things that save lives, and and that. But at the same time, you're building careers and people, helping them mature into what, from fresh out of tech school to having a family and a house and kids and moving across the world or whatever it is. Right. You've helped enable that. It's got to feel fantastic.
Yeah, it is, and it's not just me. There's people before me and people that work alongside of me that all facilitate that same thing. So it's as an organization, it's great. I am very proud of what we do.
Yep, I love it. So maybe just a couple questions. You mentioned the purchase arrangement with your dad. Family transition in businesses happen all the time, and people are always curious about, well, how do you do that? Do you go get a loan? Do you pay it out of the proceeds of the business over several years? Can you share anything about just that process and whether it was easy or smooth or things you wish you'd done that would have made it easier that people could learn from?
Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard. The hardest part of it was the emotional side of it, watching some of that stuff go down. And I'll come back to that. But as far as the business side, it was a big learning curve for me, for sure. Um, I chased down all the lawyers and the valuation people, and that wasn't necessarily anything my dad did, and so that was on me. And so I had a big learning curve there, learning all those things. And I think that was by design, that he wanted me to go do that stuff and learn what that's all about. And I'm glad he did. And we got a great team of lawyers involved and wrote up great documents. And we did have negotiations between myself and my dad and various things. So that was interesting to walk down that road. It's my dad, but at the same time, it was very much a business transaction. I think a lot of people assume that family businesses are handed to the next generation, and sometimes they are. But in our situation, it was very transactional. It was a big business decision. I'm grateful for the terms and the way we structured the note with my dad. It's very fair for both parties. Again, in our situation, it was nice because it was family that he was willing. He carries the note, and that's cool. And he's got my back, and I've got his. And so so the proceeds of the business do fund that purchase and everything like that. And that's his retirement. That's great. And it's gone well. The hardest part, and I was told by other people and kind of advised that maybe you should get a counselor involved. And in hindsight, I wish I did. But there was some resistance there. My dad will laugh and say, yeah, I didn't want to talk to a counselor. But having a counselor go through it with us and work through the emotional side of everything for my dad, not necessarily for me, because I was excited and ready and raring to go. But part of his identity was dying. He's worked here for 40 some odd years, and most businessmen and employees, you name it, when they retire, they lose a part of themselves. Part of them dies. And he was losing some of his identity and his place to go every day and things like that. And that was really hard. That was really hard to watch him go through that and go through some depression with that. And it was hard too for me to kind of go, I'm doing this to him, but eventually he got his routines and he got things going, and now it's come a long way since 2020, and now we definitely he's a great sounding board, and he's my biggest cheerleader, always has been, and he's happy with what has happened and now proud of what has happened, and he still has his identity. He's still Dave Denison. He's still the man, the myth, the legend. He's still that person. Just doesn't have to come into the shop every day. He gets to go fly his model airplanes now instead. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
he must be immensely proud of you.
That he is. I know he is. Yeah,
that's awesome. Does he ever come in the shop and poke around, or just
a couple times a week?
Yeah, lunch?
He comes in and says hey, and sits down in our office and asks everybody what's going on and things like that. He doesn't get into the nitty gritty of what's going on with work. He'll ask, got any cool projects you're working on or anything like that? And, things like that. And he likes checking out the new machines we get and
I'll bet
the technology stuff. So that's fun. He comes around still. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Thank you for being so candid. This has been a really cool and special interview. You've shared a lot about what it means to be an owner, of a business and build teams. And maybe if you could share just one anecdote of like just something that you just made you especially proud of, the work that you do, the company you have, that might come to mind.
Probably one of the proudest things and just kind of surreal things I've been a part of is that weapon system that I mentioned earlier. We're next to a church, a real big church here in Albuquerque, one of the mega churches. And one of the first times we were awarded that contract, I was setting up the job, and I was listening to the sermon from that church just that was going on live next, like literally, like I'm here, here's a wall, and the next door is that building. And there was a man from Israel talking about what it meant to be an Israeli, and walking through all the different things that come from going into the military and national pride and things like that. And again, this is in a Christian church.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving that perspective for everybody. And he mentioned something that really struck me that I didn't realize, that the conflict over there in the Middle East is it's not a conflict over war or over a piece of property. It's a conflict over generations of whose religion is right.
Mm-hmm.
And he started getting into the systems and things like that are in place to protect innocent people that live over there, and how valuable that is, and what amazing things are going on there, and with technology. And it just blew me away. I'm like, I'm standing right next to this guy setting up these parts that are part of this guy's system that he's talking about right now, and he has no idea, and that was really neat. And then a few weeks later, we got involved in that with the customer. They had a visit with us, and they said, we're an American missile defense engineering firm. We're kind of snooty, and we don't understand how this system works so well. We don't understand how it works as well as it does. And, with my faith and background and things like that, I'm like, I know why it works so well. They've got a hedge of protection around them. And that was pretty special to me. And that's probably the biggest thing I'm proud of, is the involvement in protecting that country and the people there, because they're very dear to my heart, for sure. Just because of my faith.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's an incredible example of a very specific example of how machining and machine shops and the machining industry support everything in the entire world.
Everything.
Right? I mean,
you're always posting pictures of stuff on airplanes.
Thank a machinist, and totally. Like, I had a guest recently who said if even farmers are using tractors that are tilling the land with tractors that were made in a machine shop, right?
Yep.
And so whether it's feeding the world or protecting the world or anything in between, I wish the entire world could understand how important it is what you do and people like you. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your story. Inspiring, cool, heartwarming. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
If people want to learn more about your business, how would you suggest they reach out?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Like you said, that's how we connected. So, Kelly Denison with one N in Denison. Most people throw two in there. And then our website is continentalmachiningco.com. You can check us out there. And, I'm on the contacts page if anyone wants to reach out there. And, just love connecting and networking with people. And like you, I love our industry. I love learning how different people do different things and hearing everybody's story, because it's pretty special. There's a customer that we have that's they're a small machine shop, but they outsourced a lot of work to us. And the owner, he and I have become friends over the last few years, and he said, we're part of a special brotherhood. As machinists, we're part of a special brotherhood, and that's the truth.
That's words to live by, for sure.
Yep.
Well, awesome, Kelly. Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.